The rain hadn't stopped in 3 days. By the time Mara's car died on the side of the road, the world felt washed of color. Just gray sky, black trees, and the thin silver ribbon of highway stretching back toward the last sign she'd passed. "Welcome to Black Hollow, population 312. Her phone had no signal. She stepped out into the rain, the forest pressing close on either side. The trees were tall and skeletal, their branches twitching in the wind like nervous fingers. Ahead, barely visible through the downpour, a narrow dirt road curved away from the highway. A wooden sign hung crooked at its entrance. "Ravenshade Inn, vacancy." The arrow pointed into the trees. The inn looked abandoned at first glance. It sagged in the middle like a tired spine, its windows dark except for one faint yellow glow on the ground floor. The porch boards creaked as Mara climbed the steps. The air smelled like wet wood and something faintly sweet, almost floral, almost rotten. Before she could knock, the door swung inward. A woman stood there, thin and tall, her gray hair pinned tight against her skull. Her smile was wide, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You must be freezing," the woman said. "Car trouble?" Mara nodded, relief flooding her. "Do you have a phone I could use?" "Of course," the woman replied. "Come inside. I'm Mrs. Dalloway. We don't get many visitors this time of year." Inside, the inn was warmer than expected. A fire crackled in the hearth. The walls were lined with old photographs, guests, maybe smiling stiffly at the camera. Every single frame was slightly crooked. Mara noticed something else. Every single photograph had the same background, the same wallpaper, the same fireplace. But the wallpaper around her now was faded red roses. In the photos it was blue. Mrs. Dalloway handed her an old rotary phone on a small wooden receiver. Silence. No dial tone, no static, just a faint sound like breathing. Slow, measured, not her own. She pulled the phone away from her ear. "I'm not getting..." Mrs. Dalloway was standing closer now. Too close. "Oh," the woman said gently. "That line doesn't go out." Mara's stomach tightened. "Then what does it..." "It goes down." The lights flickered. For just a second, the room changed. The wallpaper was blue. The fire was gone. The air was thick with a sour, damp smell. The photographs on the wall were no longer of smiling guests. They were of people screaming, their mouths stretched impossibly wide, eyes black as spilled ink. Then the lights steadied. Red roses, warm fire, smiling guests. Mrs. Dalloway tilted her head. "You look pale, dear." Mara stepped back. "I think I'll just wait in my car." "You can't." The words were soft, certain. From upstairs, something thudded. A dragging sound followed, like something heavy being pulled across wood. Mara's heart hammered. "What is that?" "Our other guests," Mrs. Dalloway said. The dragging sound stopped at the top of the stairs. A shape stood there. It was tall, too tall, its head brushing the ceiling. Its limbs bent at wrong angles, joints bulging under pale, stretched skin. Its face was a blur, as if smeared by wet paint, except for its mouth. Its mouth was clear, smiling, too wide. "You see?" Mrs. Dalloway whispered. Her voice no longer warm but hollow, echoing as if from a deep well. "We don't get many visitors." The thing at the top of the stairs took one step down. The wood didn't creak. It sank, as though the house were swallowing its weight. Mara bolted for the door. It wouldn't open. The handle twisted uselessly in her grip. Behind her, Mrs. Dalloway sighed. It's easier if you stay calm. The lights flickered again. Blue wallpaper, no fire. Cold air biting her skin. The photographs now showed new faces. One of them was hers, her mouth open in a silent scream, her eyes black, her hands pressed against glass from the inside. The light snapped back. Red roses, warm fire. Mrs. Dalloway was gone. The thing was halfway down the stairs. Its smile stretched wider, wider, wider. The phone on the table began to ring. Shrill, violent, desperate. The creature paused. Slowly its head turned toward the sound. The ringing grew louder, more frantic. The bell inside the phone shaking as if something were trying to claw its way out. Mara lunged for it. She didn't think. She just answered. Static exploded into her ear. Then a voice, her own voice, whispered, "Run when it blinks." The creature was inches away now. Its skin rippled, as if something were moving beneath it. It had no eyes, but it blinked. The world went dark. For half a second, Mara ran. She didn't remember unlocking the door, didn't remember the porch steps, didn't remember the rain. She only remembered the sound behind her. Not footsteps, not breathing, just the slow splintering groan of wood bending. Chasing. She burst through the trees and onto the highway. Her car was gone. The road was gone. The rain was gone. Only fog, endless suffocating fog. Ahead of her, barely visible, stood a crooked wooden sign. Welcome to Black Hollow, population 3113. Behind her, from somewhere deep in the white void, a rotary phone began to ring.
The silence of a heavy snowfall isn't actually silent. It's a physical weight, a white acoustic foam that smothers the world until the only thing left to hear is your own pulse. Elias lived for that silence. He had moved to the cabin in the high Cascades specifically for the big sleeps of January. But 3 days into the blizzard, the silence started to feel less like peace and more like a predator holding its breath. The first night, the sound of salt. It started with a rhythmic scratching against the cedar siding. Elias assumed it was a frozen pine branch, brittle and bowing under the ice. He ignored it until he noticed the pattern. Scrape, scrape, tap. It wasn't wind-driven. It was deliberate. When he grabbed his flashlight and aimed it through the double pane glass, there were no branches near the house. There were, however, long, thin grooves carved into the wood, 5 inches deep, trailing up toward the roof. The heat in the cabin was set to 20 sector, but Elias felt a chill that had nothing to do with the thermostat. The second night, the mirror image. The snow had reached the windowsills. The world outside was a wall of flat, dead white. Elias sat by the hearth nursing a whiskey when he saw a movement in the reflection of the glass. In the window, he saw himself sitting in the chair. But in the reflection, his eyes were open. In reality, Elias had blinked. He froze. He stared at his own reflection. Slowly, he raised his right hand to scratch his chin. In the glass, his reflection waited a full second before mimicking the movement. Then the reflection did something. Elias didn't. It leaned forward and pressed its pale forehead against the glass from the inside of the reflection, its breath fogging the pane. Elias bolted for the bedroom, locking the door. He told himself it was a cabin fever, a chemical glitch in a lonely brain. The third night, the frost within. The power failed at 3 a.m. Elias woke to a cold so intense it felt like needles in his joints. He reached for his phone, but the screen was covered in a thick layer of internal frost. In fact, everything was. The floorboards, the duvet, his own skin, all coated in a fine, glittering rime. He heard a wet, heavy thud from the living room. Thump, then the sound of something dragging itself. It sounded like a heavy, wet coat being pulled across sandpaper. He huddled under the blankets, his breath coming in ragged plumes of steam. The bedroom door creaked. It didn't open inward. It began to translucentize. The wood was turning to ice, becoming clear and brittle. Through the frosted door, he saw a shape. It was tall, too tall for the ceiling, and its limbs were the color of a drowned man's feet. It didn't have a face, just a vertical slit that exhaled a mist so cold it cracked the drywall.
The thing didn't want his heat. It didn't want his soul. It was the winter itself, and it was simply looking for a place to settle. "It's so quiet," a voice whispered. The voice didn't come from the hallway. It came from inside Elias's own chest, vibrating against his ribs. As the frost climbed up his throat, sealing his lips with a kiss of ice, Elias realized the terrifying truth of the high mountains. The snow doesn't just bury you. It waits until you're cold enough to become part of the landscape. The aftermath. When the spring thaw finally hit in May, the Rangers found the cabin perfectly intact. There was no sign of a struggle. They found Elias sitting in his armchair, perfectly preserved. The strange part wasn't that he had frozen to death. The strange part was that when they touched him, he didn't feel like flesh. He shattered like a pillar of salt, and the temperature inside the cabin, despite the spring sun, remained a constant, killing the room that wasn't there. If you live in an apartment building, make sure you know how many floors it has. Sarah moved into flat 604 on a rainy Thursday evening. The building had 6 floors, old, narrow hallways, flickering tube lights, the kind of place where footsteps echo even when no one's there. It was cheap, too cheap, but Sarah didn't ask questions. The first night was quiet. The second night, she heard footsteps above her ceiling. Slow, measured, back and forth. She frowned. She lived on the 6th floor. There was no one above her. The next morning, she asked the landlord. He smiled casually. Probably pipes, old building. She wanted to believe him. That night at exactly 2:17 a.m., the footsteps returned, back and forth, back and forth. Then they stopped. Directly above her bed, Sarah held her breath. A soft knock echoed from her ceiling. 3 taps. She didn't sleep. The next day, she decided to check the rooftop. Maybe someone was sneaking up there. She took the elevator. The panel showed buttons from 1 to 6. Nothing else. She pressed 6. The doors closed. The elevator moved up, but it didn't stop. 6. Then a soft mechanical ding. The display changed. Sarah's stomach dropped. There was no 7th floor. The doors slowly opened. A dim hallway stretched in front of her, identical to her floor. Same peeling paint, same flickering lights, same layout. But the air felt heavy, thick, like it hadn't been breathed in years. She stepped out slowly. The elevator doors shut behind her. When she turned back, the button panel was gone. Just a blank metal wall. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears. Every door in the hallway was slightly open, just a crack from inside each apartment. She heard breathing, soft, in sync, as if something inside every room was inhaling at the same time, exhaling at the same time. Sarah backed away. One of the doors creaked open wider. Inside, she saw a room identical to hers. Same furniture, same suitcase by the bed, same photo frame on the desk, and someone sitting on the edge of the bed, facing away from her, wearing her clothes, her hairstyle. Slowly the figure tilted its head, too far to the side, almost bending. Then it stood up, without turning around. Its voice echoed down the hallway. "You're early." Every apartment door swung open at once. Inside each one was her, standing, smiling, eyes completely black. The hallway lights began to flicker violently. The breathing grew louder, closer, right behind her. Sarah ran. She didn't know where. The hallway seemed endless now, stretching longer with every step, the lights bursting one by one above her. Pop, pop, pop. Darkness swallowing the corridor. A hand grabbed her shoulder. Ice cold. She screamed and woke up in her bed, sweating, shaking. Morning sunlight filled her apartment. "It was a dream," she whispered. Her phone buzzed. A notification from the building management app. "Welcome to floor 7. Her blood ran cold. Slowly, from above her ceiling, came 3 soft knocks. Tap, tap, tap. And this time, they were coming from below. The last scene. It started with a missed call. Hassan was alone in his apartment at 2:17 a.m. when his phone buzzed on the table. Unknown number. He ignored it. A few seconds later, a message appeared. "Why didn't you answer?" He frowned. "Maybe a prank." He typed back. "Who is this?" The reply came instantly. "Look behind you." Hassan laughed nervously. Classic horror joke. He was sitting on his bed facing the wall. Behind him was just his bedroom door, slightly open, leading to the dark hallway. He didn't turn around. Instead, he texted, "Nice try." 3 dots appeared. Typing. "I'm closer now." Suddenly, his phone gallery opened by itself. A new photo appeared. It was him, sitting on his bed, taken from behind. His heart stopped. Slowly, very slowly, he turned his head toward the doorway. The hallway light was off, but the door was no longer slightly open. It was wide open. His phone buzzed again. Another photo, this time closer. The camera angle was inside his room, right behind him. He felt something warm on the back of his neck. A breath. His phone vibrated one last time. "Now you see me." The lights went out. But his phone was still on the bed. Screen cracked, camera open, front facing, with one final photo saved. Ahsan, staring in terror at something standing just behind him. Something tall, smiling.